the rewrap house. Okay, before I go into the presentation of the rewrap house, I thought it was very important that I present to you two preceding projects, okay, that somehow gave rise to the rewrap house. And why it's important, because I think the production of architecture is more evolutionary process. So just to give you an idea about the place I practice it's in Singapore. It's an island, very small. It's about 42 kilometers in length, 24 kilometers in breadth, with a population about 5.5 million. So the biggest problem we have is land scarcity. And this is what I grew up with, okay? It's rapid urban redevelopment in the 70s and 80s, where ground is just raised for a housing population. And it's done in a very rapid phase. And the whole objective to optimize land. And here you see, in the last 20 years, the property prices, due to the scarcity and the growing population, the prices has gone up fourfold, okay, over the last 20 years. But ironically, the labor cost remains pretty much constant. So you got low construction costs, very high land price, and gave rise to this phenomenon called collective sale. This is a huge development, okay, in Gilman Heights that was completed in 1984. Less than 26 years, it was demolished because the law allows the majority of owners to actually vote to sell the development wholesale, okay? And because of land intensification, this was demolished to give rise to this. So, what do you have here? You have literally a mindset in which we start from a clean slate because it is more optimal, and a culture of waste. And one more thing about Singapore is that it's a tropical climate, okay? The average temperature is about 31 degrees. So there's a high reliance on air conditioning. So much so we rely on it. So what happens in air-conditioned environments is that you literally transfer the heat inside the building, outside of the building. So when we started the practice, we thought there must be an alternative way of doing things. In 2006, this is the first preceding project. Owner of this land actually came to us, and he wanted to actually tear down his old house because it was not serving him well anymore. And he had this rather odd-looking shaped site, okay, where you have the gray part, which is the land, and then you have this linear, kind of very skinny boomerang-shaped part, which is actually the remnant portion of the land. The whole length of this is about 80 meters. The narrowest part of the site is about 5 meters. Overwhelming constraints. The elevation from the highest to the lowest point is about 12 meters. And you have the existing house sitting down there. And what he wanted to do was to actually tear it down, okay, have more rooms to accommodate his parents, okay. It's a common practice in Singapore. You live with your parents, or you invite your parents to stay with you, and he has 5 kids. And sandwiched in between, okay, you have forests and a national green reserve. So that's the 3-story portion of the house and the 1-story portion of the house. And when we kind of analyzed the site, we thought, you have that much land, and the most valuable part of the land is actually at the narrowest end. And actually, why do you need to demolish? So in the existing house, you have literally the living facilities and the kitchen and dining, and upstairs are all the bedrooms. And the whole ground floor is a very opaque kind of construction, okay, which actually didn't relate to the site at all. So what we did was we kind of plotted out all the existing structure and foundation at the red points. And we kind of used that and reshaped the whole 1-story annex and started to relate it to the site, where we open up views to the forest and to the green. And we rest all the new structures, very, very light steel construction on the existing foundation, so that we didn't have to actually build new foundations for it. And of course, because they don't align, you create a kind of a very organic roof structure. And what you have is literally the existing house, and we created a living dining pavilion, which is almost like the primitive shed concept. Very, very light. And we use roof shingles to kind of cover the top. So it's light, very low thermal capacitance. And we propose a new house built at the back, at the narrowest point. And there is where his 5 kids and themselves would live. And the parents would live in the existing house. And they'll share all the facilities in between. So the back of the house, we created, because it was elevated with a height difference of about 6 meters, we had to build a concrete raft and house an extremely light roof structure that hovers over it. So it was a very, very lean engineering solution where we managed to actually expand the area of the house with 5 bedrooms at the back and another 3 bedrooms in front. So you have 2 additional guest rooms. And in the middle, you have the living pavilion. So with a very, very low budget, we came out with a viable and I think quite a poetic response, where the roof begins to undulate and kind of nestle into the forest. And the lightness to allow the air to actually flow through. And we created a pool in the middle that was actually just lining the perimeter of the existing structure and foundation. And pools in tropical climates are always very welcome because it acts as a heat sink, and it, through evaporative cooling, actually helps to actually bring down the temperature on the ground level. And the lightness of the furniture begins to define the space. And how we made use of the pitch, to actually minimize the material surface but optimize the space. So that's one of the bedrooms situated at the back. Now the second house, which is a moonbeam house, this was the existing. The client came to us and says that, we want to tear down and rebuild again. But upon careful analysis, actually, they had a substantial amount of land at the back. So what we did was to actually create an outer skin so that now the wife of the client, she was dealing with fabrics. She was a fabric supplier. And she needed a studio, a large studio for her to work. And what this outer kind of structural skin, I call it, does is that it actually creates an armature that supports the additional attic roof. And the extension actually happens at the back. So we preserved the existing house, created additional spaces, and the whole skin is actually a kind of a metal mesh that's very, very conductive in a sense. So it allows, it's highly porous, so the air actually flows right through the house. That's the whole idea. We created a kind of a central water court with a platform. So in the same way, it actually helps to cool the house. And the studio actually happens in the attic. So that's what it looks like. So the whole idea of creating that interstitial space where the air actually flows through to help kind of filter the heat and light, and as well as cool the interior of the house. And that's the attic. And that's the space in between the new and the old, where you have surrounding water with this platform and allowing the air to actually flow up. So with these 2 ideas, this came about, the rewrap house, in a similar situation. This is located at a cul-de-sac. And what happens is that it's situated in a very, very dense and very urban environment where you have these tall housing developments in the background. And what we thought, In the same way that, instead of tearing down, rebuild, or actually building on top where it actually loads on the existing foundation, we wanted to create a very, very light structure beside it. And the program was to actually house, again, expanding family. She had 1 kid and was expecting 2 more. And the parents wanted to live with them. So, needed more space. So again, we started with a very, very light structure, steel construction with concrete slabs. And the idea was to actually wrap it with this very, very light material again and create these interstitial space on the ground and at the attic, so that the air can actually flow through. Put the pool in the center, okay, so it cools the whole ground floor, and that's the result. So we had these accommodations that kind of contain within, okay, the very light roof that actually folds from the existing house, okay, where we recladded the roof and it continues around it. But what happens at the facade that's facing the very noisy road? We had to create a kind of sound screen that was porous, as well as, it functions as a sound diffuser. So we use brick to kind of a very, very low-tech technology in which we created these very organic modulations so that we diffuse the sound in a very, very uneven way. And that's what the interior looks like on the attic, which is where the family room is and the bedrooms. So it allows wind to actually channel through, light to come through, as well as it diffuses sound. So that's the ground floor plan. You have the existing on the left and the new on the right, okay, and we created a pool in the court. And the existing staircase was actually shifted to the back by creating a kind of a courtyard in the middle. So that's the space, the gap between the old and the new, where the wind passage is actually channeled through. And we have these steps which are actually existing, and we created some shoe storage. So that's a courtyard where the stairs used to be, and we kind of created a kind of a parterre where you could have some of the air channel through this court. On the second story, you have all the bedrooms for the kids and the master. The parents live on the ground floor. And that's the second story, the bedroom and the study. So, in a nutshell, I think here we wanted to see whether there was a necessity, okay, in a place like Singapore to actually have to intervene, okay, in this very, very kind of a clean slate, tabula rasa manner. And this 3 projects, I think, was actually a study to that. Yeah. Thank you very much.